Good morning, first years of 2021. My name is Rikus Stroh, and I will speak to you about academic writing. So, just as a, what should we call it? A disclaimer, this video is going to be short, and its aim is not to provide you with a full view of what academic writing is. You will have a module called ALDA or ALDE in your first year, which will basically go through everything over here. This is just a little short course, crash course to get you through. If you have an assignment to do before completing that module, this will help you. All right, so that's my details over there. So a little bit about myself. I lecture Afrikaans for intermediate and senior and FET students. That's my email over there. You are more than welcome to send me an email if you have a question regarding the PowerPoint, which I will talk to you about now. And if you're ever on campus, that's my office number over there, building 11B, room 111E. Okay, so just a quick question, and you won't be able to answer me, but why is good academic writing important? Okay, you can take a few minutes just to decide what your answer would be. But just as an example, look at a few of these headlines. Also, the run right at the top, the left one, newspaper had to give a apology of something they mistook a band member, the drug guy, instead of the drum guy. So weird mistake that was made. The human Brian is still evolving, say scientists, which is weird. And the last one over there, manure woman, and I don't think it should be manure, it should be mature. All right, so spelling is important. Also, look at how words are used. Illegally parked cars will be fine. Not so sure. And I like cooking my family and my pets. Please use commas. Okay, so these are just a little funny examples of why it is important to write clearly and effectively. Otherwise, you might not get your message across as you would like it to be. All right, so if we think about academic writing, and if you have to write an essay for an assignment, whatever, there's basically the same structure applies for each essay, whatever subject or whatever topic you are writing about. So first of all, you always have your introduction. Okay, and after your introduction, you have the background or context if the assignment requires it. Then you have your discussion, and in your discussion, you will have your points of arguments. Okay, so you have your argument, the first argument, second argument, and your third argument. After doing that, you end it off with your conclusion. Okay, and lastly, you have your reference list. So just a little technical thing, you'll see that all the headings are numbered, except for the reference list. Don't number the reference list. We don't do that. Okay. Reason being, it's seen as not part of your discussion. It's just an extra to have all the biographical information of the sources that you used. All right. So you have to write an essay. What do you have to do? Okay. First, you have to read the instructions, of course. Okay. Don't write about the organic structure of a butterfly if you have to analyze an economic field. Okay. No, you have to read the instructions. Then, to make sure that you know what you're talking about, you have to find relevant sources to use in your writing. All right, and you have to plan your argument, of course. After reading these resources, you go and plan your argument, and to make sure that you will make your point clear and to enhance your argument, of course. All right, so then you might ask me, okay, sources, where do I find them? Okay, library. Okay. Either the physical building or the library's website, which you can access via nwu.ac.za/library. Amazing. Okay. If you don't find what you're looking for in the library, you can always use Google Scholar. Okay, not normal Google, otherwise you might get weird topics. Use Google Scholar. It has links to all academic journals and articles that you might find, and most of them are free to use. So yeah. All right. So now you have your sources, you've read them, you want to use them. How do you do that? Word of warning, please avoid plagiarism. All right, so what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is if you use somebody else's words, or somebody else's idea without giving them credit for it. So if you find some cool thing on the internet and like, okay, I want to use this, but let's just type it up and not give, like, don't say where you got it from or who's the author, whatever, that's plagiarism. So it's the stealing of intellectual property, which the university is really strict about, and you might get thrown out of the university. So please don't plagiarize. How to avoid plagiarism is to use the referencing guide, to reference all sources used, even if you paraphrase. Okay, so if you don't use the words directly, you can still you still have to reference. And to do that, you have the referencing guide, which is free on the website. You can go to that link over there, and it looks like that. Okay, so it's a PDF document that has all the different styles of references for sources if you want to use it. Or the NW has got a great new feature. You can use Referella, which is your NW referencing help. So you can go to that link over there, and you have these videos, and on the right hand side you have those different styles of sources that you can use, and it shows you exactly how to reference it in the text while you are writing your essay, as well as how this source should look at the end of your essay in your referencing guide. All right, so remember that if you got the idea or information from somewhere, you need to reference it. Okay, so if you read up about it, about something, and you got an idea from somewhere, please, you need to include that into your text or your writing. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, so both in the text, you have to give the source in the text, in your paragraphs while you are writing, and of course at the end in the reference list. I'm going to give you an example of how this should be done. So say for instance you have this little paragraph over here. You can see I've got a reference right at the start. PAM 2011 page 406 states that, and you have this whole what should we call it, source, or the quote from the source which I used to write this. And then right at the end you have your quotation marks, and which means this is a direct quote from the text, and you have your reference right at the end as well. All right, so yeah, there we go, both at the beginning of the paragraph and right at the end. Okay, so something that you should not do is something like this. You have your whole paragraph, and then right at the end, in brackets, your source. This is problematic because your reader, which will be your lecturer, doesn't know where you use this source. Is it in the first sentence, the second sentence, or the third one? All right, so which sentence did you reference? Is it the whole paragraph, or where? So, and if you go back to this one, we can see, all right, I used this was explicitly for the first sentence and for the last one. Okay, so that's just a little difference between the two use of sources. All right, then we get to the reference list. You finish writing, and then at the end you have your reference list. It should look something like this. All right, so alphabetical order, but yeah, it looks something like that. If you're not sure how the structure looks, the referencing guide will help you with that in its entirety. All right, so then we go back to the written part of your essay, and we have, like I told you, the first heading is always your introduction. So why do we have an introduction? Why is it necessary? Okay, of course, you should also ask yourself, well, what should be included in your introduction? Like, how do you do this? Right. Think of an introduction when you're writing. Think of it as a map, right? Something like this, like a little pirate map. Got onto the beach and you have to go and find into the mountains, you have to find the treasure, something like that. All right. An introduction does exactly the same from a theoretical point of view. You have you will tell your reader in your introduction, where am I starting? What's the trail that I'm going to follow up until I make my argument, right? Up until we reach the X. All right, so that's what an introduction tries to do. It gives you a map into the whole argument which you are presenting in your writing. Okay, so you will have to include what are you doing, how are you doing it, and why are you doing it. These three questions form the basis of your introduction. Okay, what are you going to do, how are you going to do it, and why are you doing it? The what is not something like I'm writing this essay. How? By writing. And why? Because my lecturer told me to. No, those are not the correct answers for these 3 questions. All right, I will have an example for you just to give it a bit more practical use. So for instance, you have this paragraph over here, which reads like, the essay will aim to discuss learning theories and the responsibility of teachers and learners in order to ensure effective teaching. All right, then it goes on to say, well, firstly, this will be discussed, thereafter, this will be discussed, and lastly, this report will illustrate how the lesson wheel, for instance, is underpinned by constructivism. All right, so you have what I'm going to do, and then at the end it says, the goal of this essay is to illustrate the importance of educational theories and the influence thereof in first editional language. Okay, all right, so that's a good introduction. Let me show you what happened. Those 3 questions, the what, the how, and the why, it's literally in here. There's the first one. So this essay aims to discuss, that's your what question. What are you going to do? This essay is going to discuss learning theories and the responsibility. Okay. After that, it explains exactly how you will discuss this. Firstly, this will be discussed. Thereafter, this will be discussed. And lastly, this report will also illustrate. So you have your 3 steps in trying to answer or trying to do the what. All right, so your how and your what has been answered. Now you get your why. The why is sometimes difficult to try to figure out why are you doing this essay, or why are you writing about this topic. But think about it as, what are you trying to learn from this essay? What is this essay trying to explain? All right, it might be very close to your what question, but it should be written as a statement. For example, the goal of this essay is to illustrate the importance of educational theories. All right, so that's your why. This is why I'm writing about this, to explain or illustrate the importance of the educational theories that we discussed. All right, so then you have your introduction complete, and then you're going to write up on those 3 points that the introduction spoke about, and you get to your conclusion. All right, so just like the introduction, conclusion is always mandatory. You have to write a conclusion. Why is it necessary? Okay, it's just like a little reflection. All right, why should it be included? Of course. So think of it as a quick reminder of what took place in the essay. Just have to remind your reader about, okay, we spoke about this, or this is what the essay was about. We spoke about this, and this is why we spoke about this. All right. So what the goal or the aim was, and if the goal or the aim has been reached or not. Okay, so that's basically what you do in a conclusion. It speaks to the introduction in the same type of structure, but at the end, you just have to, it's a reflection of what has happened and what do we know now. After reading or writing this, what's clear? All right. For example, you have this little conclusion over here, which is part of the same type of example. So it starts with, from the discussion, it is clear that various educational theories exist. Right? So we know, all right, this is the conclusion, because it's after the discussion or from the discussion. We have, in the pink part, the discussion of the main educational theories. Okay, so a quick reference to what has been done. All right, and then right at the end, in conclusion, constructivism is an important and useful educational theory. Okay, especially relevant for learners in the first editional language classroom. This is the goal and how it was reached. All right, so we explain. So all right, we know now why constructivism is important. After discussing all these things, we know it's important, and that it is especially relevant for learners in the first editional classroom. Good. Right. So after writing your conclusion, you go and draw up your reference list, and you're basically finished with your essay. Lastly, just remember, once you have finished your writing, read through your work and use the spell checker to pick up small typing and spelling errors. Right? Because the surest way to find spelling and grammatical mistakes is to submit your essay. During my undergrad years, I remember reading through it. Great, okay, there's no spelling mistakes. Once the graded assignment came back, there was little circles all around it with spelling mistakes. So it does happen, but give it to somebody else to read so that they can figure out all or just for them to see the what should we call it, the mistakes, so that because you do lose marks for it, especially if you study language. If you study African languages, Afrikaans or English, spelling does really make sense. and is important. All right, if you have any questions, you won't be able to ask me now, but please use comments or send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. All right, well, thank you for listening to me, and good luck with your studies.